Ludonarrative dissonance is almost everywhere in narrative-focused video games. The Witcher 3, you chose to follow dumb quests that are irrelevant rather than saving Ciri. Resident Evil, your character got bitten but it doesn't matter because that happens in gameplay. The Last of Us Below Survivor, Joel got damaged by firearms but was shown to not have bullet wounds because it's a video game. Resident Evil again, you can make Leon stare at a toilet for several hours, but again, that didn't happen because it's in the gameplay. Breath of the Wild, you focus on setting the grass on fire to fly rather than saving Zelda because she got the personality of a potato. Oh wait, even a potato has more personality than her.
So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato. Oh good, my slow clap processor made it into this thing, so we have that.
Red Dead Redemption, John Marston, a man who's determined upon saving his family, just so happens to focus upon bringing mayhem and killing everyone in the county because he just so happens to be bored. Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur was shot several times in the head and so happens to be fine once he drank medicine, but isn't once it happened in a cutscene. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Lara went apeshit and killed everyone as if she's the devil incarnate herself, which later regrets what she has done as if all the massacres she has been committing never happened in the previous games. Red Dead Redemption 2 again, Arthur Morgan is known to be the man who specialized more in rifles, fails to shoot everyone properly when the auto-aim disabled during sniper sections because the game has shitty aiming sensitivity. God of War, if Kratos is getting his ass kicked, that's just because of the player's fault and really happened during the gameplay sections. Because he was portrayed as this warrior incapable of being careless and imprudent during combat. Doom guy can't aim for shit. Again, player's fault and happens during gameplay. Ludonarrative around game over deaths is justified. We just accept that this is meant to be designed around challenging the demographic into becoming aware around their skill and performance. Why is this a big deal then? Because there are certain games that took their narrative seriously and are trying their absolute best to prevent ludonarrative from happening. A good example of this would be two games, and one of them succeeded in doing so, The Last of Us Part 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2. In Part 1, Joel kept on killing people with no hesitation, but his character was portrayed to be someone who is willing to go far in order to protect himself and the people he cared for. We never stop ourselves and question, why is it fine for him to burn a guy? On the other hand, Red Dead Redemption 2, every time Arthur stalled or spent important time into looting, the people around him reminds him to hurry up. This is great, but there's an issue. This game is open world, and that means in between of an important mission, you could dick around and ruin the tone what the game has to offer. A good example of a game that almost, if not, do not have any ludonarrative dissonance, that would be games from Software. FromSoft have made games that makes dying a part of the game's narrative. Dark Souls has you entering a multitude of alternate universes that is supposed to share similarities with the world you previously died in. Dying in Yharnam prevents you from permanently eviscerating your physical existence as it brought you back from the lantern connected to the hunter's dream. In Sekiro, he resurrects himself. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. How do you make open world games that has a focused narrative to prevent itself from encountering ludonarrative dissonance? Simple. What if you make the first portion of a game the full linear Naughty Dog experience, which in the end of the main game begins the side quest shenanigans open world bullshit, and once you have completed a threshold of what it has to offer, the true ending was then revealed and there you go! We can't complain that Geralt saved a frying pan over saving his own daughter, because the main stuff was over. Anything can happen after the main quests. Wow, the gang is in peril and yet Arthur spent most of his time just doing some unimportant stuff like fishing just to put them back in the water to get the good ending. That's why some RPGs could be my favorite regardless of having not so good combat. When you play an RPG that has your character as the main protagonist, it doesn't really feel out of place to have him dick around cause you made him or you are him or her. What he or she does depends upon what you shaped him or her to be. A great example of a cinematic narrative that was well implemented would be Part 2's permadeath system. Screw it, put permadeath system in Uncharted 4 and Part 1, and you will get yourself a cinematic yet intense masterpiece. Part 2 is cinematic with death being permanent because we won't be in disbelief when Ellie won't rise up from the grave at a certain checkpoint. Some people won't care, but it is still jarring to see that happening. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice has a certain amount of threshold where if you died enough, you'll return at the beginning of the game. Cool stuff. Some games made game over deaths look non-canon to the point that it doesn't feel like it really happened. In Max Payne 3, once Max dies, the screen becomes a comic template and then have a close-up of Max's constipated face and then stop right there. It felt as if this doesn't really happen thanks to how appropriately yet goofy it looked. In conclusion, it is almost impossible to make video games free of ludonarrative because the problem is it's a video game. You can make a perfect cinematic experience when a game isn't really designed to be that way in the first place. That's why films are so unique and really can't be below video games because they're different. Films are cinematic not because it's happening inside your screen, but because it is exactly placed meticulously the way it was supposed to express. You feel these emotions around people pretending to be genuinely happy, sad, lonely, afraid, and angry. In a video game, you can screw that up because dicking around is a lot more fun than following what the developers want you to exactly do.
I'll bet he's gone to see the clown. I'll bet he's gone to see the clown. I'll bet he's gone to see the clown. I'll bet he's gone to see the clown.
Yeah, that won't get old. If there is one thing I get to say about this, Naughty Dog, I love your games. Hell, I would even go so far to say that I also love Part 2. But please, take advantage of the fact that you're making a video game, not a movie hybrid. It's cool that Kojima did it, but that's mostly because he did it first. If Kojima makes these types of games nowadays with anime explosions everywhere, people would think he's ripping out the cinematic moments from you. So that's about it. Don't forget about your oranges, or else the corona would return to harass you from the